everyone, this is Mindy for Lawnfawn, and we've probably seen lots of examples using the nighttime sky stencil for a spooky scene, but today I'm going to use it to create an outer space platform pop-up card. I went ahead and die cut all of my pieces I need to create my platform pop-up. I have the platform pop-up, the add-on, the hillside wrap, and also the pop-up hillside inserts. And I die cut most of the pieces from Dolphin cardstock except for the add-on, which is going to be my backdrop that I die cut from white cardstock. I'm taking that pop-up add-on piece, that's going to be my background, and I'm aligning the nighttime sky stencil right in the center, but I'm going to put it up towards the top so I don't have the full moon. And I mask that off with some Post-it tape so I don't get any ink in the other areas. And here is my inspiration. So I went and I Googled kind of some galaxy moons, and this is what I found and what I wanted to try and recreate. All of the inks I'll be using for this are using the Distress Oxides, starting with mustard seed just at the very top, because in my picture the yellow was more towards the top of the moon, but I only have about half of it. So I just added a little bit at the top. Then I came in on one side with picked raspberry. I'm going to try and save room for two more colors. The next color I have is going to be salvaged patina, going right next to the picked raspberry because I know when I overlap the blending, these two colors will mix well together, and then up into the mustard seed. And the last color I have is seedless preserves, and this one I have to be a little bit careful with when I get towards the yellow. So because it came in pretty harsh and pretty bright, I'm going to go back over some of those areas, starting with that salvaged patina to kind of smooth out that transition a little bit, and then bring back in that mustard seed just a little bit. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of this card is going to be me working through the ugly stages of the card because I honestly was not completely happy with this. This wasn't quite like the picture, but I'm going to just keep working through it. So I removed the stencil just to show you what that was looking like, but I'm placing that back in there so I could put the mask over the top of the moon. That way I can work on the rest of the sky. But what I do suggest is placing that in there before you actually remove it. I still end up with a little bit of a white hue around my mask, but I'm totally okay with that. So I held that mask down with my magnets on my make art station and my finger, and I'm coming in with tumbled glass just going around the very outside edge. Then I'm going to come in with a blueprint sketch. This one I'm kind of starting off of the cardstock and working my way on. I'm trying not to overtake that light blue hue that I have going around my kind of galaxy moon that I have. Then I will bring in the seedless preserves, and that one's more of just kind of an undertone. You don't see a lot of it. So I blended that out a little bit more with the blueprint sketch over the top. And then I'm going to come in with black soot. So I had to bring this one in quite a ways because the bottom portion of this is going to get taped down to the box. So I needed to bring that in just a little bit. After the black soot, I'm going to bring back in some of my other blending tools, just using whatever leftover ink I have on them, like the blueprint sketch and the tumbled glass, just to help kind of soften that transition. So now I remove the mask and not bad. It's still not quite like I was picturing, but I'm going with it. Now I brought in some of the other parts of the stencil to add detail to the moon. I am using pumice stone, and once again, I did not like how this looked, but I'm going to just kind of set that off and out of my mind for right now. And I'm going to add some stars to the background. So I added my mask back on top, holding that down with a magnet, and I'm going to bring in this Copic white. So I'm picking a little bit out of that jar and placing it on my station. This is very fluid, but not fluid enough where I could get the speckles on the card. So I did need to add a little bit of water to it. And then I'm sprinkling this or tapping this all over my background. So I'm liking the background. It was my galaxy moon that I wasn't completely happy with. So I'll just set this off on the side to dry for a little while. While that's drying, I'm going to work on the actual platform pop-up portion. So these two pieces I have die cut out of Dolphin cardstock. In the beginning, I showed you one in white. I don't know what I was thinking, die cut it out of white. So I did the other one. So I have two now in the Dolphin cardstock. And I'm just going through and folding along all of those score lines that the die provided and reinforcing those folds with my bone folder. So this is going to be my planet that my images are going to be on, which is why I did it out of that dolphin cardstock. That way, if I wanted it to be kind of dusty or dirty looking, I have the base color for everything and I can just add the detail later on. Now we have our three T-shaped pieces, and I am going to fold the flap at the bottom with and reinforce that with the bone folder. I'm only going to be folding two of them. That third one, we are going to just cut that off right at that score line. Now I'll take my 1/4 inch double-sided tape and I am going to add some on those two flaps on the T pieces, and I'm also going to put it on that top flap on our two platform pieces. So this is what we are going to be attaching our box together with. Now I'm taking one of those T pieces and sliding it through the slot on the top of the box, and I'm having it so that double-sided tape is facing down. I also want to make sure my T shape or my line here of cardstock is lined up straight, and then I can come in and remove the backing of that double-sided tape and push that flap down. So that's adhered to the box. Then I removed the backing on that top flap. I'm going to push this up, make sure that flap is down, and then I can secure that right underneath that scallop line. So that finishes one half of our box. Now I'm going to repeat those same steps for the second half of our box. So once again, taking that T-shaped piece and sliding it in through the slot, remove the backing on that tape on that little flap and push down, and then remove the backing on that small flap and just kind of fold that up so it lines up right underneath that scallop. We still have that other T shape that we cut the end off, so I'm adding that 1/4 inch double-sided tape to that. I'll remove the backing on that, and I'm going to add it to the kind of inside of my platform here, just making sure that lines up with the other T shape that I have there. So that is going to create our inserts or our ground area, whether you're using any hillsides or if you're using grass there. Then I'm adding that 1/4 inch tape to the other side and just making sure to push down so that's secured really well in place. I am also going to need some of that double-sided tape on these two end flaps. This is what's going to connect these two pieces together. Now I'm going to line these up next to each other. So I have it so one flap is going to overlap the other part of my box, remove the backing and attach that. Then I can remove the inside pieces, those long strips I put in the center, and also the backing on that other flap on the right-hand side. And then I can fold this up, just making sure that that bottom portion is lined up and I can push that down and just making sure that the top there, my flap is tucked in. So that's going to attach our entire bottom portion of our pop-up card. So I'm just going to kind of push that down, make sure everything is working. Everything is scored really well and it's working. So I'm going to move on to my hillside inserts. I have three hillsides here cut from that dolphin cardstock. I started with pumice stone to add a little shading. It just didn't look right, so I brought in hickory smoke. That was too dark. So I went back over it with pumice stone. Like I said, this whole card was a total just work in progress, not going like planned, but I'm rolling with it and just kind of adjusting to all of it as needed. Then I'm going to flip these over and I am going to add a strip of the 1/8 of an inch tape to the very bottom on the back part of these. This is how I am going to attach the inserts into my platform pop-up. So I'm removing the backing of that, placing that over the top of that T-shaped piece so you can't see that kind of top portion of there. It's covering that up. You could leave them if you wanted, but I love having the different inserts for this. Like again, if it's whether the grassy look to it or just having this fun hillside look. I love these hillsides because they can also be as snow or even just a grassy hill or even some waves in the water. So I love how versatile they are. So now I'm back to my background. And like I said, I did not like that pumice stone there. So I decided to bring this back into my Make Art station and align that image or that stencil portion back up with it. And I am going to bring in fairy dust stencil paste and put a light coat of that over that area, hoping to add a little bit of sparkle to that and kind of cover up some of that light gray that was there. So I'll remove the stencil. I'm definitely loving the sparkle, so I will set that off on the side to dry. The stamp sets that I'm going to be using today are Beam Me Up with the aliens in the spaceship and also Out of This World. I stamped my images on 80-pound weight cardstock with the lawnfawn jet black ink, But I wanted to show you how I did this little alien. So I already stamped out the spaceship and I lined up a post-it note at the very bottom of where kind of that glass piece is for the spaceship, and then placed my alien right there. So my post-it note is masking off the bottom portion of the spaceship, and it really looks like my cute little alien is sitting inside that spaceship. I'm going to use my Copic markers to color in my images. So one of the images is this small little moon because of course in a galaxy there's many moons. So that one I did in like a light pink and a light purple. For my alien, I have to have a green alien. So I did a 3-shade color combo for that. And then I did kind of these light blues and a really light green for the glass for my alien spaceship. And then I'm doing a red spaceship and it'll have gold lights that I'm just coloring with a light yellow marker. As far as a light source, this card, nothing was going as planned. And I had no idea where these were going to go on my card. I did not plan that out very well. So I'm not really sure exactly where the light source is going to be for each image. So I just went with the flow. The green alien in the spaceship, I put the darkest colors on the left-hand side. This cute little guy, I did the darkest color towards the top of his head and blended that out so it faded off into a lighter color towards the bottom. I did a little bit of light gray for the eyes. And then this other monster, this other alien is going to be in purples. And I think I grabbed the wrong purples. So I had to kind of improvise. I have the darkest color on the right-hand side, but as I brought in my mid-tone and my light color, it wasn't quite blending like I wanted, or it wasn't looking quite like I wanted it to. So I'm going to do some tip-to-tip coloring, and that helps kind of smooth out that transition a little bit and salvage my alien. My next little alien up on top there is going to be in some yellows, and I did do a 3-color combination for that one. I'm also going to go ahead and add yellow around the ring of my planet and also that smaller spaceship. And then I'm going to bring in some light blues for the planet. And I'll have a little bit of a light blue for the top of that smaller spaceship. And then I'm going to color it a dark blue just to make it a little different than the previous one. Now that one, I kept the highlight area in the center of the spaceship. After everything was completely colored, I took out the coordinating dies, held them down with Post-it tape, and ran them through my die cut machine. Now I can start working on some of the assembly of the actual platform pop-up. So I took my background and I'm folding along those scored lines. My background is nice and dry at this point. And then I'm going to flip this over and I am going to add some of that, what do I have here? The 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape, adding that to the very bottom on the back. Then I can remove the backing of that, and this is going to line up in the back of my platform pop-up, which is kind of another reason why I really don't put my critters or anything inside until that background piece is in there. It's just easier for me and I don't get confused as fast. So that way I can make sure everything is facing in the right direction. So once that was tucked in, I just kind of folded everything up and pushed down really well. And now I could start bringing my scene together. So I'm using some liquid glue and my tweezers to add my spaceship into my background. I'm also going to take that small moon and add a little bit of liquid glue to that and place that on the other side. So as of right now, I am actually pretty happy with how the background turned out. Kind of wish I would have used some different colors for my kind of galaxy moon, but you live and learn and I know better for next time. Now I'm taking some of my little aliens and putting a little bit of liquid glue towards the bottom on their feet and attaching them to those hillsides. Now, one thing I really love doing with any type of pop-up card is getting little strips of acetate and attaching them to the inserts to make it look like the image is suspended. I think that that's the coolest part of an interactive card. So I have a strip here that I added some that 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape to the bottom of, and I'm placing that in the back of my hillside in the very back. And then I'm going to attach my alien that's in the spaceship to this piece. So he's going in the very back, so he's not going to block any of my other images. I also added a strip of that double-sided tape to that acetate piece, and that's what's going to attach my spaceship. I also have that one lone little planet there off on the side, and I really didn't need it, but I already had it. It was just one piece. So I decided to add it off on the side over by my small moon. And then I'll flip this over and just trim off any of the excess. A lot of times this is easier to do before you attach that backer piece, but It was kind of a last minute decision. I have these two pieces that I die cut from the platform pop-up hillside wraparound, and I die cut it out of that dolphin cardstock to match the rest of my card. I'm going to be using the manatee ink from Lawn Fawn and these hillside stencils. So I have that once again on my make art station, and I'm going to add the color to the top of the hill, also to the very bottom of the insert, and then flipping that over and adding it to the top. So I kind of wanted to have this rolling scene, like this is the desert planet and just have all these rolling hills on it. So I did that for both of those so that each side will match. Now I brought that stencil back in to mask off the top portion of my wraparound, and I'm once again bringing in that Copic white and adding flicks. This is another one of those things where I was not super confident on it. I did not know how this was going to look. I really didn't like how it looked right now, but once again, I was just going to roll with it and keep going. After these are dry, I'm going to go along and fold along the score lines that the die provided, reinforcing those folds with my bone folder. I'm going to place the 1/4 inch double-sided tape on those two tabs on each end. And then once again, I'm going to line these two right up next to each other, remove the backing on one and fold the tab over, and then remove the backing on this top one and fold it so it's connected. So it's all one piece, kind of like the belly bands. So now you can see how that's kind of the shape of our card. We need to add tape runner to our actual platform pop-up. And what I found works really well is I have kind of this slick mat, and I'm going to add tape to one side of my platform pop-up, flip it over, add the tape runner to the other side. So even though my tape is kind of sticking to that slick surface, it's not removing that tape. Everything is still intact and I could pick it up easy. I flattened my platform pop-up and I'm just taking that wraparound piece and sliding it over the edges. It fits over the entire thing. You just need to be careful, wiggle it a little bit, and make sure it doesn't catch on those scalloped edges. And then it just slides right down and I can push down to make sure everything is attached really well. So now here is how everything is looking, and it's at this point that I actually really like those stenciled hills that I put on there with the white speckles. I didn't like it before, but I liked it once I got it on the box. My sentiment is coming from the Out of the World stamp set, and I have a piece of black licorice cardstock here that I die cut from the platform pop-up wraparound. There's an insert piece for that. So I prepped it with an anti-static powder tool, and I'm stamping my sentiment in the Yeti ink, so that's the white pigment ink. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some white embossing powder and tap off any of the excess. This is just always one of my favorite ways to white heat emboss because I get such great coverage. And then after my heat tool is nice and hot, I'm holding that piece with a clothespin to keep my fingers away from my heat gun as I heat emboss. A last minute idea that I had was using these stars off of that wraparound add-on. There's just a little set there. There's a couple little things. I think there's hearts in there too. And I die cut my stars from some of the gold glitter cardstock. And I am going to add these into my platform pop-up card using that acetate trick. So I went through and I added 3 to the inside. And I think this really pulled the whole scene together to have these gold glittery stars in there. It's kind of one of those small finishing touches that you didn't know you needed, but just made the whole card come to life. So after I got those kind of 3 inserts there, I'm also going to take some and add some liquid glue and add them to the front of the card as well and around my scene. So as I was finishing up and kind of playing with the platform pop-up, I realized that I probably could have added that same sky blending that I did with the blueprint sketch and the black soot. I probably could did that to the back side and that would have made a really complete sky and card. Didn't think of it at the time, but I wanted to let you know in case that was something that you wanted to do. So that finally completes my outer space platform pop-up card. I really am happy with how this turned out. So even though nothing really went as planned, it still all came together. I just kind of worked through those ugly phases of the card and just used what I had. And once it all came together in the scene, it just turned out perfect. I hope you enjoyed today's inspiration using the pop-up hillside wraparound and inserts and just some of the different ways that you can use that and also that nighttime sky stencil. It's not just for spooky Halloween backgrounds, and I cannot wait to use it in Christmas cards. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.